So many of the writers who come to me to work with me come to me because they've been rejected by literary agents time and time and time again. And they're starting to wonder what gives. Is it because my query package wasn't good, or is there something wrong with my book? And that is a fair thing to wonder. And I think that so many times writers go into this writing thing without really knowing what it is that readers or agents want. And you can choose whether you care about this or not, but the simple fact is, if you prefer traditional publishing, this means representation by an agent. Agents are the gatekeepers of the publishing industry. Most publishers will not accept unsolicited manuscripts from unagented writers. So like it or not, you're going to have to figure out what it is that agents are looking for. And many times there's an overlap between what agents are looking for and what readers are looking for. So even if you're self-publishing, you're probably going to want to listen to this episode, because let me tell you, I was in the same boat as these clients of mine that I absolutely didn't quite know what agents wanted. And I think that that cost me a lot of time and energy. And now that I know what agents want, that doesn't mean that I'm going to gain representation. It's often a book by book thing, but it's useful to know what readers want and what your agent wants. If you're a writer dreaming of becoming a successful author, join me, writing coach Corinna Akavane, on the How to Be an Author podcast, your weekly source for writing information, inspiration, and motivation. Welcome back to the How to Be an Author podcast. I think this is your shortcut to really going from aspiring writer to successful author. And one of the big things you need to know when you start writing is, what is it that readers want? Let's touch on that first. Well, this is kind of easy to answer in a way, but then it gets more complicated. The easy answer is, what is it that you want in a story? You're probably similar to your ideal reader in a lot of ways. So think about that. Think about, what do you expect in terms of the types of characters you're reading about? What do you like them to be like? What do you like them to act like? Do you like them to go through a big development throughout the book? What do you like in terms of a setting? What do you find engaging? Many times the setting is going to dictate the genre of the book. So that's another personal choice. Which genre of book do you like? Do you like romance? Do you like cozy mysteries that are set in a little village in England? Or do you like books that are set in a foreign land or on another planet? All of that is fair game. You can like any of those things. And that's the beauty of writing, is that stories can be set all over the place. And it's kind of an easy way to vet things that you're going to like to read or not is, do I want to read something that's set in a winery? Yes or no? Easy. If you don't want to read that, you can pass on this book or that book. Or if you want a character who's a strong woman, you're not going to want to read certain types of book where the characters who are women are more objectified. All of that is something that goes into your decision of what you want to read or not. What kind of emotional payoff do you want? Do you want that emotional payoff, or do you want more action scenes? Do you want to come across something that's going to inspire you in this book? Do you want to use this book to transform your life? Or are you looking for some poetry, some beauty in this world? Or are you looking for something that's eminently readable so that you can take it to the beach and enjoy it while you're on vacation? All of those things are awesome, and you can choose. Sometimes you like one kind of book, and sometimes you like another kind of book. What kind of book are you going to write? Here's the thing, though. It's pretty impossible to be objective. So no matter what you set out to write, no matter what kind of story you hope to convey to your reader, sometimes we don't hit the mark. And you can reread yourself till the cows come home, unless you're extremely experienced. And even then, it's really hard to be objective as to how your story's coming across. And that's why you need beta readers and or an editor to tell you whether your story works and whether it works in the way you intended. Is it readable, inspiring, and enticing to your reader? Your agent, they're going to want this plus much, much more. So let's start talking about the agents. And even if you don't plan on getting an agent, a lot of these things extend to what it is that readers want. So you always see authors celebrating when they get signed with an agent. They're like, oh my God, yay. They feel like they've arrived. Okay, here's a quick little bummer is that I have signed with and lost a couple agents. And it's been a great learning experience, but it's also been frustrating. And I've been publishing under my own publishing house, Balmorum, for a while now, but that doesn't mean I won't seek representation ever again. I will do that. I may do that. And I think personally that hybrid publishing is really the best way to go to be a financially successful author. I think that you can keep publishing things yourself your whole life and then publish with a publishing house if that is a possibility for you as well. And I also want you to be confident enough to realize that just because an agent rejects you doesn't mean you suck as a writer. There's so many factors that can lead to a rejection, and we'll be talking about those as well as the things that make an agent want to represent you today. Sometimes an agent will reject you because there's a problem with the story, and sometimes they'll reject you because it's a market thing or a business thing. And we'll be discussing all of those things in today's episode. The nitty-gritty of the querying process is something you'll get in my course, From Idea to Published in 6 months or more. So make sure that you subscribe to my website so that you can be one of the first to apply when that course comes out this year. I have other courses that you can check out in the meantime, but this is going to be a signature course that I am so very proud of because it really contains absolutely everything you need to go from idea to published or from idea to querying. And it'll make you confident that you're not missing a single step. Okay, moving right along. It feels like a huge mystery as to how agents choose what they're going to take on and what they don't. It feels like a secret, something hidden. It feels like a crapshoot sometimes. But there are definitely things that agents are looking for and other things that they are most definitely not interested in. So let's go into that right now. The first thing agents are looking for is something sellable. And if you're planning on self-publishing, you're probably like, forget it. I don't need to listen to this anymore. Yes, you do. If you're self-publishing, you are still trying to sell books. So it's important to look at what agents consider to be sellable. So what do they consider to be sellable? Well, first of all, something readable. That's really important. That's the thing I mentioned that your beta readers are looking for. They're looking for something that has a great story, of course, but something where the reader is going to understand what that story is, that they're going to be getting all of the payoff of that story. And they're looking for something that's pretty polished because that is important, something polished and professional. Remember that ideal you had that you're going to write a piece of crap and your agent's going to see it and see the intention behind it and be like, oh my God, you're so brilliant. I'm going to hire this editor that I'm going to pay for and they're going to polish your piece of crap into a diamond and it's going to be a bestseller. Yeah, no, that's a fantasy. That almost never happens anymore. Agents are looking for something that they don't have to work too hard to get into a form that is polished and professional enough for them to sell it to a publishing company. Let's talk about which genres are sellable or better off self-published, still sellable, but differently. And we'll be talking more about genres in a future episode. But for now, let's talk about some things that agents are looking for. So one thing that you're going to do is that you are going to go log on to one of these websites that is specifically designed for authors looking for agents. So it's the writer's market thing or the publisher's market. You're going to look at those websites and you're going to see the lists of agents. You're going to see their listings and what they are looking for. So some of them are looking for something called genre fiction, which is the romances, the adventure novels, the sci-fis of this world. And others are looking for literary fiction, which is the stuff that's more emotionally driven and that doesn't stick to such a formula. Some agents want one, some want the other, some want both, but really they're always looking for something pretty unique. So no matter your genre, and some of these genres, for example, fan fiction is usually better off self-published, and some more edgy erotica, for example, is better off self-published. A lot of things like that that don't fit into the basic, box of what is conventionally published or what's easy to publish. All of that is important to know, that some things are better off just self-published from the get-go. But look at what your agent's asking for. They might surprise you. So should you be emulating those publishing trends? When you see that everybody's writing about vampires, a few years ago, they were all writing about that. And then it was zombies. Should you emulate that? If you're publishing through a conventional publishing house, you probably shouldn't emulate that, because the publishing cycle is long. It takes forever to get a book from just when the agent sells it to the publisher to when it's actually going to be published and when it's on the schedule. And in that time, that trend is going to die down. So I would say, look at trends of the type of content, like strong characters, representation, all of that. That's something you should look at. But in terms of looking at subject matter or genres, maybe take that with a grain of salt. One thing both readers and agents definitely look for is something that has a really strong plot, something plot driven. When I talk about something plot driven, of course you think you have a good plot for your story. We all do. We all think we have a story. But sometimes some of us do not formulate our plot in the right way. We don't tell our story in that optimal way that makes it feel like the reader is on a roller coaster going inexorably towards this giant drop. And that's what makes the reading exciting. When you can't put the book down, a page turner, that's a sign of a strong plot. And if you're a little bit at a loss of how to create a strong plot, I recommend you look at our previous episode that talks about Save the Cat, which is this kind of play-by-play beat sheet where they tell you how to construct a plot that's pretty strong. And again, I say take that with a grain of salt too. You don't have to do every single step in the Save the Cat beat sheet, but it will help you to construct a plot that's kind of unstoppable. And that's something that agents are definitely looking for. Now, when I say strong plot, I don't mean something where a ton of stuff is happening. And this is something that we're going to get into much more deeply in a future episode, but plot isn't things happening. Plot is things that need to happen with causality, things that happen because something else happened. And they don't have to be giant battles and adventure scenes. It can be these small emotional things that happen along the way because your character did something. Speaking of characters, let's say that that's another thing that both readers and agents are definitely looking for. They're looking for characters that are both unique and strong. And they're looking for a character that is going to inspire people. They're looking for a character that's, if not likable, at least relatable. A character that is going to stay with the reader a long time after they've finished reading. I touched on representation. I think that's another great thing. Readers love to read characters that are like them. So if you're going to write a character that's trans, or a character of color, or a character that's in a certain age group, or a character that's interested in a certain thing, that's maybe a little bit part of a niche, that's great because that makes your book easier to sell to that demographic. If you can easily identify who's my demographic, then you can more easily market to that demographic. A quick note about this, by the way, if you're not part of that demographic that you're writing about, you need to be super sensitive about it. You cannot be writing to exploit any group so that you can make money off of it. So try to be writing about things that you actually know about, or that actually fits into your story, or that you have researched very sensitively. Another thing that both readers and agents are looking for is a really compelling setting. Your setting is what makes people dream. So look at the people who love Harry Potter. They love the character of Harry Potter, but I would venture to say that even more than Harry himself, they love Hogwarts. Hogwarts is such a great setting. It's detailed. It impacts the plot so well. It shapes how characters interact and what they can and can't do. It shapes a whole lot of those adventures, and it's something that really makes people dream. So I think that Hogwarts is one of those examples of a spectacular setting, but your setting doesn't have to be supernatural. It doesn't have to be as extraordinary as that. A great setting, there's a book that I read, and I don't know if you've read it, but it's called The Life of Pi. The whole book takes place basically on a lifeboat in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And that's a spectacular setting because it creates these parameters and these kind of things that impact the whole story. There's this kid on a boat with a tiger. What's going to happen? He can't get off the boat. How is he going to eat while he's on the boat? How is he going to interact with his tiger while on the boat? What's going on? That is one great setting. Another thing people think about when they're writing, and a lot of my clients do this as well, I find that it's quite the writer's trend to have series. Writers love to write series because they think, oh, I'm going to be like J.K. Rowling. I'm going to write the next Harry Potter, and then I'll be able to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and keep writing. I have my cast of characters. I have my great location. So my work's half done for me. All I need to do is set another story into the same great setting and concept, and I'm going to have something that my readers will keep following me to read. Well, not so fast, my friend. To write a really good series, you need to write a really great standalone book first. And that's the thing where I tell my clients that when you're pitching to an agent or when you're writing your first book, you need to make sure that that book can stand alone as an extraordinary book to make people want to get the next one, to make the agent say, wow, I wish you had a second part to this. But you do not need to mention in your pitch, hey, this is part of a 6-book series. No, thank you. That's something where your reader's thinking, oh, I'm going to get invested and then I'm going to be forced to read more, even if I don't have time to or the willingness to. So you want to make sure that the series thing is not the primary thing about your book. Now, let's talk about things that agents want specifically. These things no longer really matter in terms of self-publishing or in terms of what your readers want, but these are some more things that have to do with how you query. These are some of the things that have writers who are pretty good writers being rejected. One of the things is the query package. The query package is basically exactly what you submit to the agent. And usually the agent will specify exactly what it is that they want in the query package. So you don't need to invent this. You need to read directions. Usually the agent's going to want a cover letter, a synopsis, and a set number of pages of your book. Do not get creative with this. Give them exactly what they asked for. If they ask for an outline, you give them an outline. They ask for a synopsis. How many pages? It's probably on there, and you give that to them. You also want to make sure that your book, if you're trying to get it conventionally published, you're going to want to make sure that it actually can be published. Like if your book is thousands of pages long, that's not a conventionally published book or one that's easy to publish. That is a book that's outside of the normal parameters of books, and that's going to make agents think twice before they choose to represent you. So think about those things. Think about if your book's too raunchy or your book's got too many swear words in it or it's too long or it doesn't really stick to the genre. Then that's a book that an agent is probably going to turn down. Another thing that an agent really, really wants is they want an author who understands how the business works. And that is an example of, if you're trying to submit a book that's 1,000 pages long, you don't understand how the business works. If you just learn a little bit more about how the business works, and you can definitely do that by listening to this podcast regularly and by also signing up on my website because I have a lot about that. But if you understand how the business works and how it's changing over time, and if you have a handle on marketing or on your author platform, and we're going to talk about that in a second, that proves to them that you are an author who is professional, that you are an author that agent can work with. And that's half the battle. Because if you're an author that's professional and that they can work with and who understands how it works, then you're an author that they can take a chance on because publishing is a business. Your agent, when they take you on, they are going to invest a lot of time and probably money into you. So they're not just going to represent you out of the goodness of their heart. And also, they're people too. They have their own interests and likes and dislikes. But on top of that, they're a business person. So you have to understand how the business works and what the expectations are on you as a professional. If an agent says to you, I really love this, but I think you need to have it professionally edited, I'm saying to you, they're saying this to you as a professional. If you think that you can get away with not having it professionally edited and get back to that agent, you might be wasting their time and they might be getting upset with you. So think about the things. Just because an agent says, well, you need to do this and you need to spend X amount of money in order to take me on, that's also your choice. You don't have to just, jump when they say jump. You have to decide what's right for you. Maybe after your offer of representation, you're going to say, you know what? I actually think I can do better with self-publishing, and that's fair enough. Now, if you get an offer of representation, that's what I'm talking about, that you can decide whether it's right for you or not. I think if you get an offer, look at it and see if this is something that's actually in your best interest. You probably, if you get an offer of representation, want to see if you want to talk to a lawyer, to see if the letter looks right, to see if the terms are right, to see if you're going to get cheated in this whole thing. That's really important because all agents are not created equal. Some agents are professionals and some might be scammers. So you really need to make sure that you know what you're doing when you decide to actually sign on that dotted line. And again, if you get multiple rejections, as I was saying in the introduction of this whole podcast, definitely start to think to yourself, what does this mean and what am I going to do? Because I always say that the successful author is not the one who's only planned for success. It's the author who's planned for failure and who has a plan as to what they're going to do. So are you going to revisit your book and keep plugging away? Or have you decided that you can't do any better and you're getting rejections because of your genre and you're going to self-publish? Really decide to have a plan as to how you're going to get this book out there, because the only huge mistake is doing something that means that your book is never going to come out and never going to be seen by readers. So make your book as good as possible in the ways that are available to you, and then make a calculated decision on how you're going to get it out there, whether it's conventional publishing or self-publishing. And then we're going to be talking how we get that book out to your reader. That's it. I hope this really helped. And if you have any questions as to how any of this stuff works, I hope you'll reach out to me. Feel free to email me, ask me some questions. Feel free to set up a free 15-minute writer call with me. That's on my website. And soon enough, we'll have a membership where you can be checking in on office hours and getting answers to your burning questions kind of on your time. And that'll be really, really useful, I think. But in the meantime, I thank you for tuning in to the How to Be an Author podcast. Please, if you enjoyed this podcast, drop me a review and also let your writer friends know about this podcast, the fact that they can hopefully get help on this and inspiration and motivation and inspiration as well. And I look forward to being with you next time. If you have any pressing writing-related questions or would like to be featured on the How to Be an Author podcast, please feel free to reach out on my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com.